Everybody has things that they believe essentially without evidence.
Is atheism the enemy of Christianity? Do Christians and atheists have anything to offer each other? And if so, how should Christians approach conversations with our atheist friends and family? There's no shortage of Christian versus atheist content online these days, so I asked our producers to find a few clips of conversations between believers and non-believers. So we'll be watching these clips together, and then I'll share a few thoughts of my own. Let's get right to it.
I've told the story before. I was once asked to speak to a group of atheists on the existence of God, and I went through their questions and tried to answer their questions. I said, I think that you bringing all these intellectual questions to me is fine, and I'll deal with them. But I have to tell you where I'm coming from. I'll put my cards on the table and be absolutely honest. I don't think that your problem with God is intellectual at all. Your problem with God is not that you don't know He exists. Your problem is a moral problem. You hate Him. You can't stand Him. And you do anything you can to get rid of Him. That's the biblical picture of how the human condition is. That we will not have God in our thinking. But here's the thing. God will not allow us to extinguish Him from our thinking. We cannot escape Him. We can try to suppress that knowledge, but you cannot annihilate that knowledge of God that presses in the interior dimensions of your mind.
Okay, I hesitate to disagree with this man. It's R.C. Sproul. He's a legend in his own right in Christian circles. And so I'll start with more of what I agree with in this clip. I do hear what he's saying, and I agree that some people who are atheists do claim that worldview, not because they deny God's existence on the merits of it, but because they hate the things that God represents. You know, they view God as oppressive and mean and restrictive, and they want to be free from all that, so they claim atheism. There are people like that. I mean, there was a popular atheist YouTube channel recently that I saw surveying its followers, and the survey asked, if God did in fact exist, would you believe in Him? Would you worship Him? And 85% of the respondents, of whom I'm guessing most are atheists, or if not all, 85% of them said no, they wouldn't. Even if God was real, they wouldn't worship Him. And that is indicative of what this clip's addressing, that sort of atheism that just despises God. But I want to be fair here to my atheist friends, and I do have atheist friends, even though I'm a pastor. I have atheist friends and family. And I have to say, not all atheists reject God for that reason. They don't all say God doesn't exist because they just hate Him. There are others, like one young man, Alex O'Connor, who's very prominent in atheism right now. He comes to mind because he has said that he has genuinely searched for God and he would love to find God, but for whatever reason, he just hasn't found Him, and God has eluded him. And he says he's knocked at the door, but God hasn't answered, at least not yet. And Alex O'Connor calls this the hidden God problem. And he thinks that God's hiddenness is evidence that there's no God at all. If God was real, He would make Himself evident, abundantly evident to everyone. And I think it's important for Christians to give people like Alex the benefit of the doubt here, and to hear them out. So we should be careful to take a breath and not paint all atheists with the same broad brush. We wouldn't want them to do that to us, so we shouldn't certainly do that to them. That's a great start. What's next?
Well, the idea is that everybody worships something. Everybody has their dogmas. Everybody has things that they believe essentially without evidence. And the atheist message was always, we're people who analyze these questions. We're people who plug in those gaps in our knowledge, and if we can't justify something, we're not going to believe it. And with that, they levy this closed-minded accusation against the religious. And I guess there's one thing to say that they do it as well. Do you think that they do it more so?
If you read the works of the apologetics, it's really this whole exercise in trying to grapple with that, where they say, we're not believing in something just because we believe in it, and we're sticking to these really very serious attempts at trying to understand, to explain, and there's a great deal of doubt.
Okay, real quick. So a pretty cool coincidence. That's Alex O'Connor. I just mentioned him in the prior clip. The young man doing the interview is Alex O'Connor, the atheist influencer that I just mentioned before. And he's interviewing another fascinating person. Her name is Ayaan Hirsi Ali. And she was a very famous, very outspoken atheist on the world's scene. Like, she was out there until about a year or two ago when she shocked the world with her announcement that she had converted to Christianity. She'd become a Christian. That was amazing to hear. I'm curious to see what they say next.
So I think it is really on the other side where there is this certainty that there is nothing, and then trying to get everyone to come to the belief that there is nothing. And I'm not saying this is true for every atheist.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a caricature to say that Christians they all just believe without evidence and without thinking. It's like, oh, have you read the apologetics? Have you read the gallons of ink spilled over debating and trying to justify positions? Now, of course, atheists will say that, well, we do that too, and we do it better. But you're someone who's been on both sides of that. And I think when atheists say, oh, Christians, they just believe it because their parents told them to, they're thinking of like their uncle at Thanksgiving. They're not thinking of the William Lane Craigs or the Alexander Pruses of the world. They're thinking of someone that they know personally. But similarly, I know more atheists who are just atheists because, I've never seen any evidence, whatever, haven't given it much thought, than I know atheists who've sort of reasoned their way into that conclusion. I think it happens on both sides, in other words, but you're someone who's now lived both of those sides and interacted with both of those sides. And you said a second ago that you feel like more closed-mindedness comes from the atheist side than the Christian side.
More close-mindedness comes from the atheist side, and more certainty. Again, not for every atheist, but definitely if you take atheism and you turn it into an activist position, because then you're selling something. And that's what is, it's blinding, isn't it? You become so confident. And I think even a little more than confidence, there's an element of arrogance. In this is it. There's really nothing more to know or learn or find out. We have it. There's nothing.
I mean, people say that that's what the Christians say. They say, I have my answer in this book, and I'm a humble Christian who has the answer to the biggest question of the universe and knows the truth. And there's no need for further inquiry because we have the scripture. It tells us the way things are.
I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure that's the case for a lot of Christians. And I have to tell you, on a personal level, it is wonderful to have the answer, to have this relationship with God, a God who's loving and whom I talk to and pray to and feel a sense of peace. But then on a more intellectual level, when you take the position, there is something. I think you are then much more involved mentally in proving or even finding out. The curiosity is very high. It's finding out, well, if there's something, what is it then? And where can I find it? So I think that opens up just a whole lot more in terms of learning and reading and finding out. And, in the time that I became a Christian, I've also been approached by people saying, hang on, there is something, but it's not necessarily Christianity. It's something else. There's an energy, and people are giving it all sorts of names. Mm-hmm. But that's, I think that stance, that mental stance, it provides for more curiosity than the position where there's nothing, I can't be bothered. Or I can only be bothered to tell other people that there is nothing.
Oh, wow. That was fascinating. And that was just a little clip of a much larger conversation, I think. And I want to watch it now. We'll put the link to the whole thing in the description of this video if you want to check it out. Here in this clip, we had like two of the most brilliant, brightest minds in the world talking about maybe the most important question ever, which is there something more? Is there something more than what we can see and touch and taste? Something more than matter and energy? Is this world in its natural state all that exists, or is there something supernatural that can be known and explored? It's a big question, and it was fascinating to hear them talk about it. People like Alex, on the one hand, will say that they just don't see enough evidence of something more or something supernatural, so they claim naturalism as their worldview. Naturalism is a form of atheism. Then you have Ayaan, who insists not only does she see evidence for God rationally, but she has seen and experienced God personally. And that's compelling, especially coming from someone who has lived her story as a former outspoken atheist. So both of these people present compelling cases, and the question is, who do you believe and why? Well, I think for me, it comes down basically to what Alex and Ayaan went back and forth about. I think it comes down to where you begin the journey. It comes down to your predisposition, which I think can be chosen. You can choose your predisposition, like you can choose your attitude in the morning. And if, like Alex, you're predisposed to believe for whatever reasons, that nothing exists beyond the natural world, then I think you're more likely throughout your life, you're more likely to find that nothing is there. Even if you claim to be looking for something, you're more likely to find nothing. But if, like Ayaan, you're more predisposed to believe that there is something, whatever it is, something mysterious about this universe, something supernatural beyond this life that we can, that we can maybe access and explore, then you're more likely throughout your life to find and experience that. And what I loved about this clip especially from Ayaan, was how clearly she articulated what I would call benefits of the faithful predisposition that she has. I think there really is more curiosity. There's more wonder, and there's more mystery and beauty in the mind of the person who says, I genuinely believe there's something more. I don't know what it is. I just know there's more to this life and this world than what can be seen, something beyond the natural. And I want to know what it is. And whether you're a Christian or an atheist or anything between, I just think it's really important to stay curious, to go deeper, to live a more interesting life by asking questions with an open mind and heart and chasing those questions. And I believe that most often, if you're predisposed to that sort of wonder and mystery about the world and yourself and your life, I believe your journey will eventually lead you to God in some form. And I hope that for all of you. Okay, that one's going to be hard to beat, but let's see what's next.
Well, I must say I was slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it wouldn't matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful.
Well, which brings me to my supplementary point, which is that, as we know, church attendance is plummeting, but the erection of mosques across Europe, I think 6,000 are under construction, and there are many more, are being planned. So do you regard that as a problem? Do you think that matters?
Yes, I do, really. I have to choose my words carefully. If I had to choose between Christianity and Islam, I choose Christianity every single time. It seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion, in a way that I think Islam is not.
I think you're going to have to explain why you say that, Professor Dawkins. Why is Islam fundamentally not decent like Christianity?
Yes, the way women are treated. Christianity is not great about that. It's had its problems with female vicars and female bishops and things. But there's an active hostility to women, which is promoted, I think, by the holy books of Islam. I'm not talking about individual Muslims, who, of course, are quite different. But the doctrines of Islam, the Hadiths and the Quran, is fundamentally hostile to women, hostile to gays, and I find that I like to live in a culturally Christian country, although I do not believe a single word of the Christian faith.
All right. This one I struggle with. It makes me ill a little bit. I don't know. We talk a lot about Christian hypocrites. I guess there's such a thing as atheist hypocrites, and I think we just saw an example of it. I'll talk about that in a second. But just in the spirit of full disclosure, the other clips in this video were new to me. I was pretty familiar with this one already because this is Richard Dawkins. And when he, of all people, came out as a cultural Christian a few months ago, it made headlines the world over. This is the guy who wrote The God Delusion, and he has offered the most scathing critiques of Christianity and Christian faith for as long as I can remember. And so for a man who's made a career of claiming to be utterly rational and reasonable, I think these claims that he makes in this clip are incredibly irrational and unreasonable. Basically what he's saying is that he would like to preserve all the benefits that Christianity has afforded to Western civilization, while at the same time ignoring or even eliminating the faith that forms the foundation of that worldview and the benefits that it brings. Now, he wants us to sing, apparently, songs. He wants to keep singing hymns about God without believing in that God to whom we're singing. And that just makes no sense. I'm sorry, that's just bizarre. And I expect more from Mr. Dawkins. I remember in the aftermath of this video, reading a tweet from one of my favorite Christian historians, Tom Holland. And I'll butcher this quote, but he responded to this video by saying something like, Dawkins is sitting on the same branch that he's been sawing through, and now he's looking at the ground, afraid to fall, or something like that. And I think that's an accurate portrayal of what's going on here. And the biggest problem with Dawkins's newfound identity as a cultural Christian is that there's no such thing as a cultural Christian. My apologies to any of you who identify as such, but I mean, there are Christians who believe the gospel, and then there are non-Christians who don't. And there's not really anything in the middle there. It's one or the other. And I just don't think you can cherry pick all the fruits of Christianity and the Christian worldview while at the same time denying the very faith that those fruits grew out of. You know, I think if you are of a mind to agree with Richard Dawkins in this clip, I would just gently encourage you, friend to friend, to explore deeper, to go deeper and explore the tree that those fruits that you appreciate have grown out of. And I think you'll find a lot of beauty there and a lot of truth. All right, that was a lot of fun. It was a challenge. I really enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you agree with me or not. So be sure to leave me a comment in the comment section below. And if you have other videos that you'd like me to watch and react to in the future, I hope you'll drop links in the comments to those videos as well so that we can check them out. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.